Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a topic that is incredibly personal and complex. We're talking about the impact of losing a sibling, and maybe more importantly, how we can move past just coping with that pain and start to actively, honor and celebrate their life.
It's such a profound area of experience, and the source material we're looking at today gives us a really useful way to think about it. Because when you lose a sibling, you're not just losing a family member.
No.
You're losing your first playmate,
Yeah.
your longest relationship, and so often the main keeper of your shared history.
That shared history, that feels like the absolute core of it. And the research we looked at frames this whole discussion perfectly, especially since we're just wrapping up Sibling Bereavement Month. So our mission today isn't just to talk about this unique kind of grief, but to give you a bit of a shortcut to the actual steps, the rituals, the keepsakes that you can use to build what the source calls a living tribute.
I love that phrase, a living tribute. It's about turning passive memory into active love. But before we can do that, we really have to dig into the unique weight this particular loss carries. We have to unpack why sibling grief can be so complicated and, frankly, so misunderstood.
Right. It does get overshadowed, doesn't it? Society's grief narrative, it tends to focus on losing a parent or a child, but losing a sibling feels like a kind of identity fragmentation.
So that's a perfect way to put it. Fragmentation. The relationship you have with a sibling is, it's peer-based. It starts from birth and runs right alongside your own life. So when that person is gone, you haven't just lost a companion. You've lost the key witness.
The witness to your life. Wow.
The only person who can truly validate what your childhood home was really like, your parents' quirks, every single inside joke.
You're losing the context for your own story. And if that one person who knew all the backstory is gone, you have to sort of restructure your own identity. You're suddenly the only one left holding all those memories.
The sole archivist. That's why the healing process is so different here. It's not neat. The grief isn't confined to a schedule. It definitely comes in waves, during the big moments, birthdays, holidays. But so often, it's the little things, the mundane triggers that just hit you the hardest.
Oh, like the smell of a certain food cooking or hearing a song on the radio, just that constant echo in everyday life.
Precisely. And the material's really clear on this point. Recognizing that this pain is nonlinear, that it's this constant presence, is the absolute first step. You have to validate that the pain is real, that it's warranted, no matter what kind of attention it gets from the outside world. And that recognition that allows us to move from just acknowledging the hurt to actively celebrating the life.
Okay, so if that validation is the foundation, how do we start building on it? How do we translate that history into something tangible and celebratory? The first method the research offers is about bringing laughter back into the home, which that feels like a really brave thing to do.
It's an intentional effort, for sure. And that's where this idea of the childhood memory jar comes in. The goal is almost psychological. It's to replace that instinctive sadness that can pop up and instead connect the memory to the joy and, honestly, the absurdity of your shared past.
The mechanics sound pretty simple. You get a jar, some scraps of paper, but the magic is in the content, right? You're asking the family to dig up the funniest, happiest, most ridiculous stories they can think of.
Yes, and the details are everything here. We're not talking about, we had a nice time at the beach. We're talking about specifics, like the example they gave, the time they hid under the porch to avoid bath time, or that failed lemonade stand, the one that sold, and I love this quote, more mud pies than actual drinks.
Mud pies. See, that's such a specific grounding detail. It instantly creates a picture in your mind, a feeling. It's about anchoring the grief in something light.
Yes, or even the secret language, recalling those silly nicknames or made-up words or that ridiculous secret handshake you had. Those are the unique artifacts of that sibling bond, and bringing them up actually helps counteract that negative emotional loop that grief can trap you in.
I love the idea, but I have to ask, speaking for the listener here, isn't there a risk of, forcing happiness? How do you balance that intentional joy with the need to just feel the raw grief sometimes?
That's a really important distinction. This isn't about denying the sadness. It's about choosing when and how you engage with the memory. The ritual itself, drawing one note out, reading it aloud once a week, it makes the celebration manageable. It's not overwhelming. It's just a gentle weekly dose of that shared history. It says, this relationship was rich and it's worth celebrating even while you navigate the pain.
That reframes it completely. It's like intentional emotional management.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving from stories, which are ephemeral, to something tangible. The second method is about physical items, the shadow box portrait.
Right. Because for so many people, those mementos can become a burden. They just sit in a drawer or in the attic, gathering dust, and seeing them can be, well, it can be painful.
No.
The shadow box transforms these static objects into a living, curated story.
That's a huge psychological shift, isn't it? You're taking a piece of your past out of the dark, where it's frozen in time, and bringing it into the light of your living room, making it part of your present.
Exactly. The goal is to tell their story in 3D. And the research gives some great examples of what you could include. Maybe a worn baseball glove from all those backyard games.
Right.
Or a locket with a photo from a family trip. Or even just old handwritten notes from when you were teenagers.
It's the difference between clutter and tribute. When you arrange those things together, they become this quiet, constant reminder. The memory isn't something you have to go dig for. It's just there, part of the environment, reaffirming that bond every day.
Because a visual anchor for that active legacy we talked about.
Mm.
And it lets other people, friends, new family members engage with your sibling's history too.
That's a perfect transition, actually, expanding this from a personal act to a communal one, which is so critical for support.
Which brings us to the story circle supper. The isolation that comes with grief can be just crushing. And this ritual is designed to actively fight against that. It's about creating this warm, intentional space for family and friends to gather and just keep that spirit present.
So it's not just a dinner, it's a space where grief can be expressed openly, safely, and maybe even with some joy, surrounded by people who really get it.
And the details are what make it so powerful. You start with comfort food. The research suggests preparing the sibling's favorite childhood meal. The example they use is so wonderfully specific. Making peanut butter sandwiches, but cutting them into stars, just like they might have had as a kid.
That small detail, the shape of the sandwich, that immediately sends everyone back in time, doesn't it? It's food as a time machine.
It is. And the main event is inviting everyone to share stories. But it's a specific kind of invitation. You ask for the stories only siblings would know, or only their closest friends would remember. It focuses everyone on the unique essence of that person, not just general memories. It opens that private vault.
And by doing that, you're channeling your grief into something constructive. You're strengthening the very family connections that a loss like this can sometimes fracture. You're all saying, we're still here, and they are still part of us.
Absolutely. And beyond that one big gathering, the material also talks about smaller, ongoing rituals. Things that help fight that isolation all year round, not just on an anniversary.
Right, the little anchors you can hold on to on a hard day. What were some of the top recommendations for those?
Well, simple acknowledgement can be enough, like lighting a candle on their birthday. That's a quiet, recurring act. Or planting a tree in their honor that turns remembrance into active growth. It's a powerful metaphor for healing.
Music, too. I mean, that's universal. Playing their favorite song, or even better, creating a collaborative playlist that everyone can add to. It keeps their voice, their taste, as part of the rhythm of the house.
And another one, a really personal ritual, is to keep that dialogue going. Writing letters to them and keeping them in a special box. It lets you express your feelings as they evolve, ask questions. It maintains that connection without any pressure.
That's almost like a targeted form of therapy, of journaling. And the last one was about channeling that love outward.
Yes, volunteering for a cause they cared about. That turns passive sorrow into an active, meaningful legacy. If they loved animals, you help out at a shelter. If they cared about literacy, you read to kids. It ensures their values continue to have an impact on the world.
This brings us to the final and maybe most crucial part of our deep dive, the support system. Whether you're the one grieving or you're trying to support someone who is, what's the best advice the research offers?
For the supporters, the advice is so simple, but it can be so hard to actually do. It's just presence and patience. Listen without trying to fix it. The research is very firm here. Avoid the cliches, everything happens for a reason or they're in a better place. Those phrases just minimize the very real pain the person is feeling.
We all have that instinct to try and solve the problem, but this isn't a problem to solve. It's a process to endure. So the best thing you can offer is just showing up quietly, reliably for the long haul.
Exactly. And for the grieving sibling themselves, it's that reminder that healing is not linear. Some days you'll be fine, and the next day can feel like day one all over again. That inconsistency is normal. It is not a failure.
You have to make space for the bad days. And the advice is to really seek out connection, specifically with people who understand this kind of loss, friends, counselors, support groups.
Yes, because this grief is so often overlooked, connecting with others who share that experience provides a validation that you might not get anywhere else.
It's so true. Sharing your story really can lighten the burden, especially when the person listening just gets it.
So we've walked through the unique weight of this loss, the power of tangible things like the memory jar and the shadow box, and the communal comfort of story circle suppers and all these ongoing rituals. We started with this idea of building a living tribute.
And that's really the takeaway. Honoring a sibling is an active choice. It's about embracing their entire legacy, the love, the lessons, and all the laughter they brought into your life. Grief changes us, of course, but by doing these things, we make sure that bond deepens our appreciation instead of just defining our sorrow.
By committing to these rituals, the mud pies, the peanut butter stars, all those stories in the jar, you're doing intentional work. You're not just passively remembering. Which brings us to the final thought from our sources, a provocative one. If building this living tribute is active work, what about the days when the griever just can't? When they don't have the energy to act? The real test of a living legacy isn't one person's strength, but the strength of the community around them. It requires a support system that isn't just there to comfort the pain, but to show up week after week and help turn those rituals into a sustained shared reality. The legacy has to be carried by everyone who loved them so their life is honored forever, even on the days when the person who misses them most is just too tired to carry it alone.